Just press it. There we go. Fantastic. All right, well, welcome everybody. It's the 20th of March, 2018. Thank you very much for joining us from around Australia and possibly beyond. We're certainly pleased to have our Tasmanian crew here. They are out on force, which is fantastic. Excellent to see you there. And we're really excited to have this presentation with Jennifer and her team about education for sustainability in early years, stepping up to the challenge. So Jen, you've certainly stepped up to the challenge today. You've defeated technology well. So over to you, and thank you very much.
Okay, thank you very much, Peter. I think that's one of the things that we're all grasping with, but the Zoom on a national level is just revolutionising how we operate. So thank you to the Nationals for making that available. The webinar today is about just putting forward some ideas of where we're at with education for sustainability in the early years sector. It's been a long-held passion of Sue Elliott, as everybody in this network is aware. When I was president in 2010, 11, 12, etc., it was one of the things that we tried to promote, and in WA we got on with that. Anyway, I'm jumping ahead as usual, so I would like to follow the slides that are provided. Thank you, Sue, for making them available. So first of all, we welcome the traditional custodians of the land on which we work and live and recognise their continued connection to land, water and community. We pay respects to the elders past and present and emerging. We also welcome you to all share your experiences in the early years sector and contribute to ongoing focus on the EfS in this important learning stage. This webinar is led by myself. I'm the convener of the WA chapter, the chair of the Little Green Steps WA, which we'll explain later. Dr. Sue Elliott is a senior lecturer and course coordinator in the School of Education, University of New England, and is an absolute champion in this area, along with her colleagues. And Miss Claire Dunn is the Environmental Education Officer in the City of Coburn, and that's an important partnership for us in West Australia and in the early years sector. So we have about 8 to 10 minutes each to speak, so I'm going to suggest that we rattle on and hopefully we allow lots of time for discussion at the end. The three areas that will be covered will be Dr. Sue Elliott will give us an overview of early childhood EfS, the alliance that's emerging and the challenges and opportunities in the field. I will endeavour to cover how we've developed Little Green Steps in WA, which has emerged out of our WA chapter of A Square, E Square, and Claire Dunn will give an overview of the benefits to local government in partnership with Little Green Steps. So here we go. Sue, would you like to address the next lot of slides, please?
All right. Thanks very much, Jennifer, and thanks to you and Peter and all the other people behind the scenes that have made this possible. It's good to see some very familiar faces among the group here. Ali and Julie, I know you've been on this mission for a long time with many other people around Australia in trying to promote early childhood or early years education for sustainability. And I guess the notion of the alliance has been a loose thing, that's a loosely structured thing that's happened over the last few years, particularly when there have been major issues in the early childhood field where we felt that we needed to make a stand and create some strong advocacy for education for sustainability in the early years. So I just want to today give you an overview of some of the things that have been happening from my perspective, and I'd certainly like to hear other people's perspectives as well. Okay, I'm multitasking, talking and moving the slides and looking at the screen at the same time. So let's hope there's not too many glitches. So just for the purposes of people who may not be aware, there have been state-based networks in the early childhood sustainability area since 1992. That was when the Victorian network established Environmental Ed in Early Childhood. And since that time, we've had a number of other formal networks established in New South Wales, Queensland and South Australia, and they're all listed there. In addition to that, we've had other groups such as Jennifer with Nittle Green Steps coming in from WA, Jenny Dudgeon from South Australia, Tasmania, who's represented the Tasmanian Education Department within this loose alliance of networks and, how can I say, enthusiastic other advocates around Australia. So I guess that's what best describes us. The formal networks have been very strong in terms of offering centre visits, newsletters, conferences, training. The networks have been quite instrumental in developing awards for the early childhood sector, because there was a time probably about 10 years ago where we got so frustrated. There were lots of awards for schools doing great things in sustainability, but there was nothing for early childhood services. So we grew our own, and they've now become a feature of the annual calendar for all of the networks. So that's basically how the networks operate. And I do mention that they operate on a shoestring. There's no magic funding that's been available for these networks over the decade or more that these have been operating now. And as I mentioned before, there's an informal national alliance between these networks and the committed others around Australia, so that if there are key issues, particularly around government policy and early childhood education, or in sustainability where early childhood is left out, as always, we have a foot in both camps and try and push ahead in both directions. So that's what the Alliance is about. And we did have a meeting of the Alliance, a summit that we held in May 2016 in Sydney, which the New South Wales Essene Group hosted that was in conjunction with the conference that was in May 2016. So we had about 20 people there at that particular summit. And that was an opportunity to share ideas about what was happening around Australia. And I think having that face-to-face meeting really helped us develop some of those connections a bit more strongly. But we've still got an issue to try and, how can I say, maintain the state-based networks, interested other people, and also try and consolidate a national alliance. And I've been very tardy on this process of trying to get this national alliance established more strongly within A squared E squared. A case was made to A squared E squared that across those 4 networks that I've mentioned, there's probably about 500, 600 members, which at my last count was about equivalent to the membership of A squared E squared. So there's a strong group of people there that could well be represented more significantly within A squared E squared, and that's what I'd like to discuss further today. If we move on then to have a look at some of the government policies that we're aware of that are impacting what we're doing in early childhood and early years in sustainability at the moment. I think many of you would be familiar with the Early Years Learning Framework that's been around since 2009. And that's our national curriculum document for specifically for birth to 5. If you go above 5, of course, you refer to the Australian curriculum with the cross-curriculum thread of sustainability. So I guess there's a few challenges with this document. While it might sound really good initially, and I think it's an excellent document in terms of early childhood philosophy and pedagogy, if you look at it from a sustainability perspective, there are some challenges because it's very much underpinned by anthropocentric sociocultural theories, and there's nothing around the more recent post-humanist thinking that offers opportunities for revising some of the theoretical underpinnings. So I imagine that there will be another draft of this framework sometime soon, because this was published 2009, as I said. So any redrafting or revision of this particular document, I think, needs to look at a broader theoretical base that offers a greater alignment with post-humanism and other theoretical perspectives as well that are more aligned with sustainability. I think another point here is that children's agency, although it is mentioned in here, it's not particularly strongly mentioned, and that's something that's come out of the work that Julie Davis and Eva Almanhagsa did, where they did an analysis of this framework and also the Swedish early childhood framework. And agency was one of the things that was not explicit enough within this particular document, particularly in mind of the United Nations Convention on the Rights of the Child, and also the new sociology theories that position children as active participants in community and active agents in change. So given our urgency of climate change, I think there's another aspect that needs looking at there. So I would hope that when this is updated, that people that are members of the Alliance around Australia are in a strong position to provide some input into that document. So let's move on a little bit. The other government policy that has influenced what happens in early childhood is the National Quality Standard, or NQS, and this has been developed by ASEQA. It was first implemented in 2013, and it's an assessment.
Volume's gone for some reason, Peter.
Right.
Can't hear.
We're fine, Jen. Actually, I can hear Sue.
Yeah, I can't hear it now.
Okay, perfect.
Okay.
Good to go.
All right. Sorry about that, Jen. Things look okay from my end. So the National Quality Standard was introduced in 2013 as an assessment and rating system for all early childhood services. So irrespective of whether it was a preschool, family daycare, childcare setting, this needed to apply right across the board, which was a good step. The key thing here in this particular 2013 document was that we had QA 3.3, which was the sustainability standard located within the broader QA3 Quality Area 3, which is around physical environments. And I have to say, at the time that came in 2013, you could hear the cheering around Australia from people involved in sustainability, that this was a unique international benchmark, really, to have sustainability in a quality assessment and ratings standard for early childhood services. And this led to quite a lot of activity around sustainability in early childhood services across Australia. Obviously, the first question being, well, what is sustainability and how are we going to do it in our early childhood service? So there's been quite a bit of work, such as the EcoSmart document that was produced by New South Wales ESCENE, and some other publications that I've done, Julie Davis has done, Tracy Young. We've all been there trying to support practitioners. But I guess the issue is, when I did the survey in New South Wales for the Office of Environment and Heritage in I think we began in 2014 and finished in 2016, that survey still highlighted that there was a lack of practitioner knowledge around sustainability and a lack of confidence around how they were actually going to translate knowledge about sustainability into pedagogical practice with children, and to try and understand that it was more than putting a compost bin in the corner and therefore we've done sustainability, or it was more than taking children out into nature play spaces, which is, I'll get onto that in a moment. So unfortunately what happened, once that benchmark was set in 2013, it was gradually eroded away, because in 2014 the Australian Productivity Commission completed a review of the National Quality Standard, and in their review they identified that sustainability was too difficult for early childhood educators to do. They didn't understand it, and also there was a problem with the Productivity Commission not seeing it essential to quality. So it wasn't something that was essential to quality, like, you know, your hygiene practices or something like that. So anyway, so what's happened when the new National Quality Standard, the revised one, was brought out in 2017, towards the end of last year, of course, the word sustainability disappeared. And now, instead of having a standard with sustainability, we now have one element which takes it down a tier in the hierarchy. And we have an element that's around environmental responsibility. And to me, that's a very backward step. To me, environmental responsibility is about a duty, and it doesn't come with the complexities and the ethics and the worldviews of sustainability that we should be promoting in our early childhood services with all children and families. So there's a challenge there. Having spoken with, remind me, Rhonda, who's the, remind me of her surname. Goodness me. Sorry, I've completely gone a blank. Must be having a senior moment.
Livingston.
Sorry?
Rhonda Livingston.
Livingston. Thank you, Julie. I knew you'd be there. Thank you, Brain Trust. So Rhonda Livingston, who heads up the ASEQA as education manager, we've had many conversations with her, and she is very keen for sustainability to certainly continue within the new national quality standard. She feels that we have made some inroads over the last few years since 2013, but to what extent she's going to be able to continue to push it when we don't have it as explicitly stated within the national quality standard. And I hope it doesn't go off the boil, so to speak, but it may well do, because it's now just environmental responsibility. So that's the challenge there at the moment, to maintain the momentum that was established in 2013 with the national quality standard, and to try and find different ways of promoting sustainability with services, even though they might see it no longer see it as totally essential to addressing the national quality standard.
Excuse me.
Yep.
Claire has a meeting at 2 o'clock. So
right.
Are you able to push her a little bit along a bit, because Claire needs to talk at the end of...
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Thank you.
Right.
Sorry.
So the next slide I wanted to address was pre-service and in-service training. As I mentioned, there still seems to be a knowledge gap in sustainability. And one thing that was really positive out of the New South Wales OEH report was the mention of the 2012 compulsory sustainability unit that people do in the diploma in the early childhood vocational courses. And those people do have the knowledge and are having an impact out in the early childhood field, and over the next few years there'll gradually be more of them. The university sector lags behind in that, and currently Julie Davis is doing a mapping and has been working on that for 12 months or so, to look at where is sustainability situated in early childhood degree courses at the moment. So there's also, well, I think I have mentioned this previously, that we need those improved knowledge and pedagogical skills. But the challenge is that the training across the early childhood sector tends to be still fairly largely ad hoc, and we don't have any major sector-wide funded state or national initiatives to move things along for the early childhood sector. And last particular area to mention is around what's happening with nature play, bush kinder, learning in natural environments. There's a multiplicity of names at the moment, but essentially it's a strong national movement now, supported by a global movement. But the challenge here is to embed an ethic of sustainability within these programs, and to avoid the over-romanticising of nature play. And the media gets on board with that very quickly. We love pictures of children outside in nature, but where's the sustainability ethic in some of the practices that are happening in these natural play spaces? So there's an opportunity and here in the nature play movement to try and build in sustainability, and also health and wellbeing and Indigenous worldviews. And also there's a lot of community building with families that goes along with developing nature play programs. And I think that's an important aspect of sustainability as well that we could be using. So, and there's significant research opportunities in many directions within that field. There's very limited Australian research at the moment. And some recent resources that people know about, the International Journal of Early Childhood had a special issue on contemporary research on early childhood education for sustainability. That came out towards the end of last year. And I had an opportunity to co-edit that with Eva Almanhagsa from Sweden. There's also an ECA webinar, and that's one I was invited to do late last year. So I'm not sure what the uptake of that's been, but that's another way to get the information out there. And I'm sure other people have got other resources that could be shared in our discussion. And things that are on the horizon at the moment, certainly consolidating, promoting national alliance and keeping those connections going. We're hoping to have an alliance booth at the Early Childhood Australia Conference in Sydney in September. Luckily this year, A squared, E squared and ECA don't clash, they're a month apart. So some of us will also be able to get to the A squared, E squared conference in Coolangatta. And I understand Lisa Sonta, who's now president of the Queensland network, she'll be running a forum at that particular conference. And I think Julie Davis and Lyndall O'Gorman from QUT will be involved there. Karen Wilkinson in South Australia has suggested it's timely we have another Early Childhood Sustainability Conference, and she's willing to get going with that in South Australia for 2019. And that would be excellent because that's something that lapsed after our initial foray into national conferences in previous years. And I know that Julie Gore might mention today the New South Wales project that's now underway in a professional learning project funded by New South Wales Office of Environment and Heritage. And there's also ongoing work at an international level where Australia is well represented. We've got the Transnational Dialogues Network, which Julie Davis established. And that Transnational Dialogues group met again for the 4th time in Victoria in Canada late last year. And there's a few things that will be happening with that group. One of the ideas floated has been some sort of international early childhood education for sustainability conference, potentially in 2020. We'd be looking for that. So open to hear other people's ideas when we have a discussion and share what else you might see on the horizon. That's just my perspective here. Okay. Over to you, Jenny.
Okay, thank you, Sue. Sorry, I had to unmute. I can't see me on this little list on my phone, but I presume everyone can see me. Are you able to move to the next slide for us, Sue? Okay, I can't even see that, so.
Right, this is why Little Green Steps, WA. Are you with us, Jenny?
Well, that's awkward, isn't it?
Okay, do we call that a pregnant pause?
Yes, and we talk amongst ourselves while it's possible that Jen's reconnecting.
Okay, all right.
I don't know, Claire, could you maybe jump in here and talk to us about Little Green Steps, or is that possibly a bit unfair to ask of you? I don't know. Sue, can you help us out with this?
Can you hear me?
Oh, Claire, yes, we can hear you.
Okay, sorry, I'm on a very old computer that I'm just trying to figure my way around. And I'm a bit jet lagged, just full disclaimer, a bit jet lagged, fresh off the plane from New Zealand, but I will give it a go.
Great.
Claire, would you like me to scroll down to your slides?
Maybe not. I'll just maybe try and give a bit of a background if this is the first time we've mentioned Little Green Steps.
Okay.
So Little Green Steps was a program that was developed on the East Coast, and the WA chapter became interested in it. I think it was, back in 2013-14. I guess it's a bit hard to ascertain. I'm not sure how many of the members present have had any knowledge about Little Green Steps in the past. I don't know if we could do a show of hands or something. A little bit. So Little Green Steps is a environmental education for sustainability. I guess it's a program that helps educate the educators. So it's very focused on the early years setting, and it's not a program that is for education for children themselves. It's all about giving the childcare workers or home daycare centre workers the skills that they need to deliver environmental education for sustainability in their early years service.
Sorry, I seem to have dropped off there.
Oh, sorry, you can't hear me?
I can hear you, but I thought I was talking, so that's all right.
Sorry, Jen. Yeah, we lost you for a minute, so I'll back over to you.
Yeah, sorry about that. This mobile phone, every now and again, it just turns itself off. I don't know why. So I'll have to keep an eye on that speaker bit. The audio.
Take it
Okay,
away.
so do you want me to, shall I go back to why Little Green Steps in WA, or?
Yep.
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 Okay. Right, so in 2010, so I presume you heard the first bit, we got the grant. We brought Helen over, who had written the original program for Wollongong Gosford. The trial were really fantastic, and it took us a year and a bit to get a successful grant up to the Lottery West Commission, and they asked if we would trial it in 3 particular locations, so in 3 local governments, and that we would limit the trial to just 1 early childhood setting in each of those areas. So that's what we did. We did Armidale, Canning and Gosnells. And the trial was evaluated, so we can offer you the evaluation to look at if you want to. And it was to try to find out what were the real issues in working with early childhood practitioners. But anybody that's taught in a school realises that the same challenges are there for those practitioners as they are in any other educational setting. And there are some different anomalies, but basically, you know, there were no surprises. But we needed to be careful and mindful of stepping out the program so that we didn't frighten the horses, that people were aware we're being professional about this, that we're being reflective, consultative. We were evaluating, and we were working to craft a program that would be really effective once we got it in place. Now, to our surprise, the Lottery West allowed us another grant for another year, which is almost unheard of, and particularly giving money for an area like this, they often don't give it for research and program implementation, so we were incredibly grateful. But what this allowed us to do was to work with the City of Coburn. Now, we're eternally grateful to the City of Coburn because they were the first ones who put their hand up to say, look, we're willing to learn alongside of you to make sure the implementation phase was as informative as it could be about the practices of local government, matching up with the practices of the early years sectors within their area. And again, we evaluated that and found some interesting information came out of that about that informed our program. And Claire will talk about that because from a, you know, I'm leading the team that's having a red hot go at trying to make the program work, but when you see it from your workplace, it's entirely different. So from the city's perspective, it's important that you hear from somebody that was a direct recipient of the challenges. I must say, getting to know how local government works is a bit of a challenge because it's an area not many of us work within, but it has its own architecture and structure and ways of working, which have to be honoured. So we were incredibly lucky also that Vicky and Claire are both members of our local chapter. So there's a little bit of infiltration happened, and it all helps. But that's how we work in A Square Square. We're always looking for opportunities to leverage off each other. So it's bringing all that leveraged stuff together, which I'm hoping today will add value to the work that Sue and her colleagues have been doing. All right, so in 2013-14, 15 and to 17 now, we've been building those connections. We've been creating specific workshops. We were able to have a great conversation with Keep Australia Beautiful Waste-Wise Schools program, and they saw the wisdom in us writing and delivering for the early years sector, because again, as many of us know, programs are written for middle and upper primary, and everybody else is told to adapt it. And our point of reference is early years is a particular learning area with its own ways of working, and you cannot just adapt. You have to think more carefully about the steps that you take to build knowledge, not only in the educators, but in the children and the parents. So we've now got a program to deliver for the Keep Australia Beautiful. We have a one-day contract. Sorry, the model that we eventually arrived at was, we said to the cities, the proposal is we work 1 day a week and we complement the work that you're already doing in this area, in your local shires. So in the city of Canning, the city of Coburn, the city of Armidale, we work 1 day a week. And the people that we employ to go in there to do that work know that they have to build the networks with the existing staff that are there. They have to know and understand how, what programs are being offered to not only to the community plus schools plus early years sector. So it's what programs can we leverage to benefit early years sector sites. Many people are just too busy to be aware of what help they can get. So we're a hub of all that information. So we're continuing to build connections. We're almost at the stage where we're happy to go and see the new Minister for Environment and see what he can do, because the past minister had challenges for us, and we did try, but my program managers didn't think that dressing up as a fairy and running children's parties was really the way to go, that they really missed the boat on, you know, we're trying to educate the educators, and hey, they might like a fairy to come and visit them, but wouldn't we all, as long as the work gets done. But yeah, we had a bit of a giggle about that, but we're hopeful that this new minister is more receptive to what we're trying to achieve. But that's the challenge we've always faced in this learning area. So we've got a website, we try to use social media, we adapt to local government directions, we hold the core of what we have as for our program about orientating the educator to sustainability, and then we've built around that 2-hour workshops that target specific areas that they raise as a concern for them, or it's a concern for the school, or it's a concern for the local government. It's not saying that we'll do anything that anything for a gig, but you know, it certainly has helped us build a suite of workshops that seem to cater for the majority of what people need at the moment. One of the things that we found really interesting is the uptake in wanting more information around Indigenous knowledge. So we've been really fortunate to encourage Leonard Thorne, who's an elder here, does amazing work in schools with everybody from high school kids right down to the early years. Leonard is just such a generous gentleman, and he's agreed to come on our committee, so he's guiding us in that aspect. But we also, our program manager has some fairly strong connections to Indigenous work, so we're very lucky. I'm going to go on to the next slide and just bark at me, somebody, if I'm taking too long. Okay, so we wanted to stay true to the connection to Wygong Gosford because it's honourable to acknowledge where you've come from. And they've agreed that we can take the Little Green Steps name, and that it's okay for us to add WA to it. One of my dreams, and I should have written it on a wall because they often happen when you do that. One of my dreams was that A Square would actually be able to have capacity to drive this program. So part of what we're crafting here in WA is can we almost like get a tick of approval that it is professional providing what people need, plus advancing their understandings, and whether that's possible for each chapter then to take up. So we would hand over all the material and each chapter would employ somebody to provide this hub in their location. So there you go, we all have dreams. You never know, it might be able to happen. So the Little Green Steps is a not-for-profit program where we don't have gift status, so we can't take money for that, but we support, managed by the Australian Association for Environment Education WA chapter that supports early years educators 0 to 8 across WA and with education for sustainability. This is, as a hub of sustainability, we support the early years by providing workshops and professional development. We connect the early years educators with education providers. We create opportunities to network. So we actually are part of it used to be called the Aussie Schools Network. Then in WA, Howard has had to be continually on his toes and morph into whatever it is they want him to be next to hold that space. So he's now known as Sustainable Schools. But another part of this work has been the recognition that if we can create this professional development for early years, that it can sit in and under the Aussie school system. I know they do work with environmental programs in schools, but we are the specific arm of that for the early years sector. So it's added value to their work. And that's the only way you can do it, really. We're so limited in our resources. So they're able to talk about our work, they share our work, we share all our workshops with them, they promote it through their networks. We're pretty good at using that system to actually get out in the rural areas. The Sustainable Schools has hubs all through WA, and we've actually run some of those hubs for them when our program manager has been out providing professional development. We take those opportunities to host a Sustainable Schools networking session. It helps us promote what we're doing, but it also assists Howard because he can't be everywhere. Loan and share resources and ideas. So we've developed kits, a few kits. We probably should do more, but there's only so many hours in the day. We produce newsletters, ongoing support. We have a member section. We have a member section on our website where we try to provide good resources, and we pinch them from everywhere. So who's involved? Well, obviously it started with the chapter, but we, as a chapter,
Jennifer, we might need to give a few minutes to Claire as well. I'm sorry to interject.
That's all right. So we don't have capacity to manage the funding of the program manager. So Circle is they manage all the hiring of the program managers and other staff. So they provide the office work. City of Coburn, Sustainable Schools, the Waste Authority, City of Canning, I've talked about those. And that's our network, is the next page, which you can have a look at your leisure. But to me, it demonstrates that we really work on establishing networks, and it's probably the same everywhere else. You just have to. Like the Sustainable Schools framework also has created the footprint, the ecological footprint, but also a handprint, and we promote that, and we've got permission from them to put our logo on that, and we give that out to schools and early years sector sites. So it's promoting their work and our work, and we're all talking the same language. Okay, Claire, sorry, would you like to jump in now?
Yeah, so Jen, I don't have to rush off if you did want to, if you did have anything else to add, otherwise I'm happy to go now.
No, I'll talk for hours, you better jump in.
Sorry, okay. So local government perspective. So Jen did mention the City of Coburn, and when we a few years ago said, yep, we're prepared to go for the pilot program and see how this program can work and what works and what doesn't. And the initial pilot program was, the contract was a 1-year partnership. And at the end of the first year, we came to terms with the fact that 1 year was just not long enough for a program manager to connect with all of our early childcare services and maintain communication, because it took a very long time for initial collation of all the different contacts, all the different services. It really took, it was a year. And sorry, as I mentioned, I'm a bit jet lagged. It really wasn't long enough for a program of this type. So while there were a number of benefits and some really good outcomes from that first year, we recognised that 2 years was a sort of a minimum for a partnership program of this type. So that's what we did over, that was the 2015-16 partnership. And that was 2 years. And yeah, that was much more along the lines of the time period required for a program like this to work in terms of communication and networking and building rapport and networks with the early years services. Probably one of the biggest benefits for our local government authority is that it allowed us to deliver, and still allows us to deliver, more programs that we wouldn't be able to deliver under our existing staff time and workload. So, and additionally, it's in local government at the moment, especially in our area, new staff isn't something that comes easily. So through our grants and donations committee, it was a lot easier to say, can we support this program as an external entity, yet that's still very involved with our council. So that's how it works. It's basically through a sponsorship that we're able to partner with Little Green Steps, who help us to deliver these early service programs for environmental and education for sustainability that we wouldn't be able to do ourselves. And it provides an opportunity for more tangible relationships with our early childcare centres and educators through the program manager. So a lot of the time, the program managers does a lot of the direct communication and support with the centres or the home daycare centres, or sometimes schools. And if needed, they will put us in touch with staff from particular centres who might need more particular support or, you know, queries as to what services the city can provide. So that's another thing that it does. It really allows for centres to get an understanding of what's available to them as an early childcare centre in terms of support from the city, whether that's through waste-related initiatives, you know, support in terms of one of the little side projects we have going in response to, well, as a result of Little Green Steps, is a sort of nature play materials program where centres who are wanting to create more nature play spaces in their early childhood centres, we've got a relationship with our parks department. So whenever they've been doing some tree lopping or clearing for whatever reason, we'll connect with centres who are wanting some natural materials. So that's just one little side thing. And it also allows for wider networking opportunities for everyone involved. One thing that's good about the workshops is that a lot of support and information is being provided to participants through the workshop deliverer, but it also creates a space for you know, participants from centres or family daycares to share their own knowledge amongst each other and help inform each other. It's just, yeah, something that wouldn't happen if those workshops weren't taking place. What else have we got? It also helps the City of Cockburn, our local government authority, connect with other local governments in a early service years capacity. So we learn about what other local governments are doing, and they come to us with questions about this program and interest in what it delivers, and it's sort of a side benefit in terms of the work we do. It also gives us opportunities and more leverage to access further grants from the city's perspective. So the city to apply for grants, given that we're an LGA or a local government authority that's partnering with a not-for-profit organisation. So that's a really good thing as well. And another thing that is really great is that Little Green Steps helps us to deliver on key performance indicators for some of our corporate strategies, strategies such as our sustainability strategy. Family services have their community strategy. So a lot of what Little Green Steps delivers for the city feeds into these strategies, which is a really big benefit. One of the last things that I've got here in my notes is that it allows for a lot more cross collaboration between our own service departments. So the whole idea about breaking down silo effects and working together to support, you know, each other's KPIs and what can we do. So it brings about lots of positive outcomes that you know, might not have occurred without this program. Okay, so I might leave that for now. I'm not sure if I was at the end or the beginning, sorry, I came in a bit late. And I'll hand over to you, Jen, just to check if there isn't anything I've forgotten.
Thank you, Claire. What I've offered is the evaluation for that second phase, which the City of Cockburn was such a big part of. So if people, I think that sits in the members section, but if people are particularly interested and they're not a member, they can contact either myself or Claire. And Claire, you'd be quite happy to talk about the benefits if it was a local government inquiry, wouldn't you?
Yeah, sure. I'm happy to take any queries and yeah, no problem.
Yeah, so I think you've covered it all. I know we did put a lot of thought into, you know, how do we make ourselves very useful to a local government, you know, and you've covered all those larger items. What we'll do now, though, is we've probably only got about 30 minutes left, and I'm presuming we don't have to stay online for that whole 30 minutes, but I'd imagine there are people who would have questions they might like to ask. So unfortunately, I can't see them all on here. So Sue or Peter, are you able to direct the traffic, so to speak? So if somebody puts their hand up or message you.
I'm happy to do that, unless, Sue, you want to?
No, that's fine, Peter. You can direct the traffic.
Okay. So thank you, everybody, for that. Yep.
I think before we go on, if we could just thank Jen, Sue, and Claire for your efforts this Savo. Very much appreciated. If there are any questions, we'd certainly love this to be a discussion. The point of a learning circle is to engage with these ideas, and I think Jen, Claire, and Sue have presented a lot of really rich ideas. So are there any thoughts or questions that you would like to share? Maybe indicate by hand if you've got an idea. If you're on video, you could also chat your question if you don't have a microphone. Any thoughts?
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, Annie, yes, I can.
Hi, I just thought I'd come in here because I'm from what's now Central Coast Council, but it's the result of the amalgamation of Gosford and Wyong councils, which were the original councils that developed Little Green Steps. So just to give you a little update, we are still going, with the program, probably 14 years on, and it's still really being well received in our community with all the preschools. We still run workshops, 2 workshops a year to teaching services. Expanded on the original program was very much on energy and water saving and biodiversity and those sort of traditional sustainability topics, waste. We have expanded them to look at other issues, including cultural competency, which was, as Jen said earlier, is something that was really wanted. It seemed to be something that the centres are really looking for. And also taking in sort of the topics like food waste and things like that. So it's still evolving and expanding and really well received by our community and preschools.
Thanks very much, Annie.
Thanks, Annie. That's a real thumbs up for us because you provided such wonderful support in our work that we do here.
Well, no, it's good to see it being used in other areas.
Any other questions or thoughts, things that you'd like to trouble or take up? What's going on with that Tasmanian crew? Do you have questions down there? Oh.
They're up to tutorials, apparently.
There is one here from Ali. Ali has to go. So I wonder if, thanks very much for joining us, Ali. Really great to have had you here. He says, thank you for the comprehensive update on EfS in Australia and look forward to further engagement with you towards the A2E2 conference at Southern Cross University in October. Woohoo! Woohoo! Thanks, Ali.
Thanks, everyone. That was fantastic. Very much.
Bye, Ali. Catch you next time. Another 10 years, maybe.
No.
No?
No.
Okay.
Bye.
Can I say something?
Of course, Viv, yes.
From the ACT. I found just because my training's not in early childhood, it's in secondary and college, but I'm actually at Botanic Gardens doing more early childhood now. That's why I'm trying to upskill myself. But we here in Canberra, as you can see, there were 4 people from Canberra are particularly interested in this area at the moment because our education department is working out a education strategy for the next 10 years, and is going through a comprehensive consultation, of which we have put in a submission which is up on the ACT A2E2 site. And basically one of the things was basically on feedback from our members of where they thought the future of education should go in the environmental and sustainability areas. One of the areas that came up as needing addressing was early childhood, and at the present moment we are advocating with the education department here, because we have our schools covered by ACSMART, but nobody is really, the preschools and the other early childhood settings, there's nothing, as was said by Sue, the materials being produced are not specifically aimed towards the early childhood, and this was felt by members to be an area, if the government was looking into what they should be doing into the future, this was an area that really, the practitioners and the educators needed more organised assistance rather than it just being ad hoc. So that's why you've got 4 ACT people today, because we're looking at what we can sort of do in this area to promote it. And it's interesting what was being said by Jennifer around the Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander cross-curriculum perspective, because that was also another thing that came out of a lot of teachers and a lot of educators don't understand that it's very easy to link the sustainability and the stuff that they may want to do on the Indigenous stuff sort of thing. It's really trying to get that professional development or the pre-service training happening so that they can see the links and know how to, where the resources are and how to use them sort of thing. And I think somebody mentioned mentoring, how if you get people together for a professional development, a lot of mentoring, peer-to-peer mentoring goes on, and that was another thing that came across strongly, of creating opportunities and supporting within the system opportunities for very busy teachers to be able to access knowledge from their peers, as well as doing, organised professional development type things.
Can I say something, Peter? Thanks for sharing that, Viv. I think Julie Gall might have some ideas to contribute to what you're beginning the journey on in ACT. And so certainly right around the professional development and the mentoring that's needed. I just want to throw into this discussion, in case people aren't aware, that when you walk into a school and start doing sustainability, you can expect that most of those educators and teachers in the school are going to have a degree qualification. When you walk into an early childhood service, there's going to be a range of qualifications from Certificate 3 to degree qualified. The most recent Mitchell report came out that did an analysis of the early childhood workforce across Australia, and we have 16.6% of educators have a degree. So that gives you a starting point for thinking about how you need to target the professional learning in the early childhood sector. And that's why I think we have some of these challenges around understanding sustainability, and then to translate that into pedagogical practice with educators. Julie, can I throw to you about OEH and what's happening there? Are you able to speak about that?
Yes, certainly can. And Viv, I think this would be a good model to use for you furthering your actions in the ACT. As a result of the research that Sue did, that she mentioned earlier in this webinar, The Environmental Trust, which is under the New South Wales Office of Environment and Heritage, have given us funding for ECEN to manage a pilot project for early childhood services. Now, the project involves 2 areas, so 2 LGAs, roughly. It's a little bit over that, where 10 centres in each LGA will be involved. There will be 2 participants from each centre who need to commit to this project. And we want that because we find that if it's left to one person, it never gets going and stays part of the culture of a service, and falls over when they leave. So we hope those people will come to the training. The project involves 2.5 days of training. So there'll be an introductory session and then 2 full days of training. And then that will be followed up with the opportunity of mentoring. And the participants in the project need to develop their sustainability project that they will submit, and they can be supported with a grant for $1,000 towards that project. And then this will then have to be finished by the end of the year. So we're starting the training in May. So all of this is in the pipelines and being coordinated right now and set up. So we should be able to help you with some valuable information by the end of the year on how this goes. We've done this in New South Wales on a smaller scale through smaller grants in the past, and it's a model that we pinched from New Zealand with their eco schools and eco kindies. We were lucky enough to go along to the first ever Education for Sustainability conference in 2006, and that's when we heard about these eco schools and eco kindies. And we thought the model was so good for Australia as well, because it connected early childhood services with their LGAs. So the Western Australian example is another adaptation of it, I suppose. And really it's connecting early childhood services and families with what's in their local areas to build sustainable communities. And then that change then progresses on through into schools, hopefully. So that's a bit of a wrap-up of it. Is there anything else you wanted to add about it, Sue?
Just for Viv's purposes, the OEH report that we published in 2016, that's on the OEH website, and that provides a lot of the background and suggestions for professional learning approaches. So that might be useful to you as well.
The other thing I should mention in this is that we're going to hold networking events. So you were talking about how valuable those are and that peer learning. We will be holding those because the idea is that these 10 centres, through their training and mentoring and these networking events, will eventually become like communities of practice. So within ECEN, which is the New South Wales network, we've been holding events that are networking opportunities. So one year we ran things called sharing stories, where a centre would generously open and we charged people to come. But over the last 2 years, we've been running these things called sticky beat tours, which operate on a Saturday afternoon, and a centre will donate their time, but they're often very keen to do that because they're very proud of the advances they've made. And people just drop in from, say, 1 till 4, and it seems to be a really good time because it seems to fit in with families who have got morning, Saturday morning sport, so they can kind of make it on the Saturday afternoon. And they've been really, the people who have attended have gained a lot, I think, from the conversations, because it is very non-threatening. So the host centres aren't experts in everything. They've really highlighted how they've done it their way in their centre with the resources and the challenges that they have, and how they've got the rest of the staff on board, that it hasn't been this thing that happens in a year or two. It's something that takes quite a long time. So that might be something people...
All of those suggestions are good. At the moment, we're just at the stage of, we've organised meetings in the education department with the early childhood people, and it's basically getting the ear. And, well, at the moment, their strategy has no environmental education included in it. So that's one thing that we're jumping up and down about here in the ACT. I think we've got their ear now. But you know, that was one of the strongest pushes in our submission. People felt, you know, just the lack of that something needed to be done in a structural way, and the government need to essentially, you know, we've got here in the ACT a city-state. So, you know, we're looking to the government to really look seriously at what they should be doing. I mean, they're promoting themselves as, you know, leaders in sustainability, but I think, you know, that then, and there are some early childhood settings and some preschools that are doing stuff. I'm not saying that stuff isn't happening, but it needs to happen in a more, you know, organised and structural way to actually help those educators who just don't have the background to know, you know, what they should be doing and how they should be doing it to gain the most out of what they're doing. As you say, it's not just letting the kids loose in a bit of bushland sort of thing. Although that'd probably be better than penning them up in classrooms. So, yeah. One of the other people from the ACT, Sue Jones, I mean, you're an actual practitioner at that level. Have you got anything to sort of say?
Yes. Yes, I go to a lot of what my work on my own business is. I have a biology background as well as a dance background. I was a classical ballet teacher for many years. So when I lived in North Queensland, I managed to get funding to do some major stage productions. One was on the Great Barrier Reef, sponsored by Great Barrier Reef Marine Park Authority and Australian Institute of Marine Science, and also one for wet tropics management on rainforests. And from that, I have developed programs, because when I came down here, I didn't want to have my own dance schools and so on. So I've developed for CSIRO mostly programs for young children, this early childhood kids, that were school holiday programs, but focused on different environments and sustainability programs. Since then, it's developed into programs that I take regularly now into preschools and childcare centres around Canberra, and schools, of course. But it is for early childhood. I take from 2 to 3 year olds through to 8 year olds. And this is how a lot of teachers overcome, and in my opinion, it's a great way because it's using the arts as a vehicle. So from teachers' points of view, it ticks a few boxes in that it not only covers the dance side, which a lot of teachers are terribly scared of if they haven't done dance outside of their teacher training, as well as the environmental and the sciences and so on. So that's what I do, and I find it's a very effective way of communicating with little people and the teachers as well, because they are learning by joining in the programs with me, which they do. They are learning how to use the arts, if you like, as a vehicle for this kind of education of environmental and as a sustainability at this level. So that's where I come from, and I just see how effective using the arts in this way, and how children really engage. They think it's fun. They don't think it's, you know, they don't think they're actually learning. We're just having a good time, you know. So, but it is a serious science thing. I've just developed a kit for teachers. I have another side called Take Flight Education, which I've developed a kit on honeybees and how all that goes. So, yeah. So that's that's where I see a good crossover with the arts with this kind of effort. Yeah.
If you haven't seen our submission, the cover shot is Sue's busy little bees doing their final performance after they've done the unit on honeybees. So it goes over very well. And also she has done stuff at the Botanic Gardens when we've been looking at pollinators and stuff. So that's what I mean, just expanding the horizon for educators of thinking of ways in which sustainability, you know, things can be done that are more suitable for the early childhood thing. That's what we're trying to get across to our education department, because I think they just are not thinking, you know, it just wasn't seem to be on their mind when they're writing their strategy for the next 2 years. So.
Viv, I think one of your first challenges with the department will be for them to have images of young children as capable and competent, as is indicated in our early years learning framework and our national quality standard. And I mean, people like Julie Gall, who's here, Lisa Sonta, we've all been down this road as early childhood educators for many years, trying to convince people in various government departments that early childhood, very young children do have opinions, they do take action, they can take responsibility. And we can do that across a whole range of disciplines, whether it's the arts or sciences or music or whatever. I've just been involved in a project with some children at KU Arimba Centre on the New South Wales coast. And the two key ecological concepts that have come out of the children's work has been around belonging and balance. And that's been displayed in a number of ways through their conversations, through their artwork, through their construction, through their letters to local government, through their design of bird-proof rubbish bins, through their biotopic mapping of their local area. So, you know, there's a multiplicity of ways to engage young children, and educators need to have some of that knowledge and the pedagogical skills to be able to work with young children. And I think you've got a job there, and we've had that job too, trying to convince people that you really do need to listen to young children and take them on board in sustainability. It's not just keeping them busy with some nature play or, you know, drawing a few pictures of elephants. That's not enough.
I just think,
Sue,
can I just say
yeah, go on.
So the challenges are the same all the way through, aren't they? It's educators actually honouring that there's good learning comes out of engaging with sustainability. And the challenge really is, you know, sustainability crosses so many areas, and it's so interwoven in everything that we do and the way we live, we should live. And, you know, the problems that can be solved, the rich learning that happens through that. I think the challenge for us is to craft out for people who like straight lines, what does it look like in a program? Because a program's drawn up. If they drew programs that was, you know, cyclic and flowing and interconnected, one of the things that's emerged in our professional development with early year sector people, you know, the educators, is once you sit with them and say, well, okay, here's your footprint, but here's the handprint. So what are you doing now currently in each of those areas? They start to look at that and map it out. And then they go, oh yeah, but you know, that could also be in the other one. You know, so they begin to see where the crossovers happen. And we've developed a template where they can document what they're currently doing against the hand and footprint criteria. And then it encourages them through conversation, you know, so what did you do in this area? And then I'll add on different ideas, different ways of connecting. So it's all that conversation that, you know, how do you get a bureaucrat to see that that's important? I don't know. Unless that's a child who's directly involved.
Where have you got the handprint? that I can access?
Well, Viv, they're on this PowerPoint, but I can send you those to look at. That's not a problem.
I thought that might be easy when we're going into meetings. Jody, the other person from Canberra, Jody, do you have anything to put in? Like you'll be with me when we went to the workshop yesterday, talking to some of the education people.
No, nothing to add really, except that that once it was pointed out, there seemed to be a really huge interest to work with them. So that's really positive. So it seems as though it was just an inadvertent leaving out. It wasn't that it was considered unimportant in a way. Do you know what I mean? It was
good to hear.
An accident. So that's encouraging, and we were given some really clear pointers about what we could do next. And so all of those ideas that you've just touched on as well, little green steps, it's given us lots to work with. So that's the only thing I would add there, is that it seems to be a welcome idea that we work with them. Yeah. So
Jody, you could always tap into Howard Flinders at the Education Department here. You know, he's been on this journey for over 10 years of trying to work in with that government department, and hold the network together and keep the providers connecting with the educators across the whole field. So he may be a valuable resource. But we're really happy to send anybody the hand and footprint that's been developed here. I could talk to the project manager and we could probably share the template that we've created. They're just little tools, but it certainly helps in focusing people's thoughts and the discussion.
Yeah,
because you can't do it all. You know, you need to start from a yes, here we are. We didn't think we were doing it, but we are, and now we can add on. And you know, if anyone's got any clues as for bureaucrats, and apart from sending in 25 small people to chat to them, I don't know what would change their mind.
We must be making some inroads, I think, Jennifer, because Michelle, who is part of the early childhood unit, we invited her to Zoom in, and she actually did. She stayed for part of, not all of the talks, but so I think we've sparked some interest that, you know, something needs, you know, that there is something needs to be more to be happening. I just think they just hadn't thought about that, or I don't know. It just sustainability didn't seem to be on their radar. So,
well, thank you so much for that, Viv, because it's every time we you know, this field opens up to filling the gap, the knowledge gap for them. It's always it always lifts everything. And for her to see that, you know, this is a national group that's come together with representatives from right around Australia who are passionate about this area, and there's such a lot of good work being done. So for her, it's not about she's going to get involved in something that's half-baked. You know, there's an opportunity for their government department to get involved in something that's really well thought out, and lots of help from everybody. We're sitting at about 2 minutes to go. What people,
before we go,
we might draw the line under the discussion for now, but I will let you know that my computer comes up. There is an audio recording of this webinar, and we will populate an online discussion. The online discussion is for members only, but it doesn't mean that we can't take, you know, any of the key people here would be willing to accept emails, I'm sure, to forward through. But Sue, would I be right in saying that any information that we can ferret through to the Alliance group would be well received?
Yes, there's at the moment it's a fairly loose connection. It's an email list of about 20 people, but any, you know, two-way communication, there are certain resources that we're aware of, and if there are people just getting started, such as Viv in ACT, then there are resources available. So, yeah.
Fabulous. And there's also the wonderful opportunity that, you know, as you've done before, is meet at the national conference. And as you said, the one in Queensland this year is...
Yep, Queensland. Lisa's here at the moment. I did mention Queensland previously.
Yep.
And
WA is putting the bid for...
Can I leap in and...
Yep.
Can I leap in and mention the ECEN conference that's coming up on Saturday the 12th of May? So for the ACT people, if they've got early childhood people who would like to come and learn more, it will have a focus on Indigenous perspectives, on connecting with country, which is very topical. And
are you going to post that somewhere so I can access it?
Yeah. If I can post it on the A2E² website, I'm not sure. I'll contact them and see if they're there.
Yes, either contact the administrator or myself. We're both put up stuff on that all the time, so happy to do that.
Oh, great. Oh, thanks, Jen.
It's on the Facebook page. You could also send an email to admin@A2E², and there might be an opportunity to post something directly on our website.
Fantastic. Thanks, Peter.
And also the e-bulletin. The e-bulletin is available.
Admin will get to that one at A2E².
Okay.
And I wanted to make a point too, just as we draw to a close here, that I've taken two points that I think were carefully and well crafted out of today. One is that there's an opportunity for a more formalised connection between the early childhood group. Sue, I know that you've been very keen for this for a long time, and A2E² has dragged their feet. So I'm keen to reinitiate that drive, and we'll be in touch to see what we can negotiate. And I think
the early childhood SIG for a while. I don't know what happened to that.
Well, we don't have SIGs anymore, so that's part of the problem. But we haven't really even formalised that with our membership. So we're working in that space now. We're getting there. And the other thing I wanted to say too is that I think I heard, certainly from the Tasmanian folk who asked a series of questions, how hard is this to take the idea of a Little Green Steps program national? So I'll certainly share that with my colleagues on the national executive, and we'll be in touch, and I'm sure we'll do some thinking about it. So maybe at this point now, I'll say thank you to everybody. It's been a fantastic hour and a half. I'm really pleased we've recorded it, Jen, and we'll be in touch to make sure that recording gets processed.
Thank you.
And thank you for all your energies, everyone who presented today, and the questions have been fantastic. So thank you very much, and we look forward to seeing you again in 3 months' time.
Okay, thank you, Peter, for all your help.